How's it, everyone? Wayne the Unknown here, and welcome back to another episode of Cosplay Con Talk, where we basically discuss everything pertaining to the cosplay community and conventions. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. You may have seen him on Facebook, Instagram, and in the documentary movie Cosplay Universe. I'm here joined by Ejen, also known as founder of Cosplay in America.
Hello.
So again, I really want to thank you for coming on. I remember, I guess, like before we recorded, I remember talking about how I found you out of the blue on Facebook many years ago, and it's just like, okay, I don't know what cosplay really is, but you're like following you on Facebook kind of made me realize what cosplay is, and it's like, okay, this is cool. I want to know more about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you for, to tell you the truth, I don't know what I was doing at that time period. People always ask, like, what was your master plan? I had no master plan. It was just like what I found interesting, I would just post, you know? So it's kind of funny because I never really thought the thing would last this long because, I started in '08. I made a book and I shot the book in '09. The book came out in 2010. And I was like, oh, this is just a few years, I'll be done. We're now like 14 years down the line and I'm still,
1450. It's crazy that you're like it's been going on this long.
I, I mean, I'm addicted. What can I say?
So, how did this all come together? Like, what made you decide to do like the photography and everything for Cosplay in America?
Oh, okay. The photography part's easy because I was a photographer by trade. And I basically got really tired of working for other people because, as a photographer, you have clients and you kind of do what they say. And I was also photo assisting for photographers, and same thing, you have a boss. And this Cosplay America thing was the first thing in my life that I actually had complete control over. And I really enjoyed it. So I just kept going with it. Um, the whole book just started because, so in '08, MA Expo moved to downtown Los Angeles.
Oh, that's right.
um, AX has been in California since like I think '92, and I knew about it when I moved to California that AX was going on because I mean if you're into anime, you kind of know what AX is already.
Oh yeah,
So
it's probably one of the biggest. It's probably the biggest anime convention in California.
the country, I mean the thing rivals. You know what? I don't know. The problem I have with numbers being given out by conventions is I can't really tell how accurate they are because it depends on how they count, attendance.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. You're back. It froze for some reason on my end. So you were
Uh,
saying about Anime Expo and everything?
oh, so Anime Expo. So they moved to downtown Los Angeles, and I saw there's an electronic billboard outside of, tells you what's coming up, and it's at Anime Expo, and I was like, oh, dude, that's Anime Expo. I've never been to it. I should go, and I'm just going to bring my lights and background and take pictures of cosplayers because I knew about cosplay thanks to the internet, and I really had a great time. The one day that I planned to be there turned into 2 days, into 3 days. Well, AX is 4 days long, so uh, that happened, and then I started thinking. I think all photographers like to do a book. I think it's just kind of a given thing. Like nature photographers like to do a nature book, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so at that time, MySpace was the big thing. And I still
Oh
believe in
yeah.
books. Facebook was around, but they weren't as big as they were. So I was like, well, the best way to spread, the word about cosplay is to make a book. And so, oh, and also there was a guy who was going to help me. There was a bookstore, like an art bookstore on the first floor of the office building that I rented an office with another photographer for like in the early days. And so he seemed interested because I was telling him about my book idea. He seemed interested in helping, coming aboard and helping me with it. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, if I have somebody who knows the publishing side and I know the shooting, photography side, then it should be easy. Haha. Never say anything is easy
No.
because, but so 2009, that's when I picked out six um, conventions across the country. In retrospect, I should have picked way more conventions because I can't call Cosplay in America and only go to like six conventions. But I fixed that in the second book. I went to 20 cities in the second book to kind of accurately cover it. But anyway, um, I just started going to convention. I started Fanime just to try it out, just to see how I feel. Like if I was okay with it and everything went okay, then I would go to, obviously AX would be the next one, and then go to ACON, and AFest, and then AWA, and then Otakon. So that was the plan. And it worked out, except towards the end, I actually maxed out a credit card.
Oh
And
no.
yeah,
Went over your budget, huh?
dude, you know how these things work out.
Oh
You
yeah.
always go over budget.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar
So
with that all too well.
yeah. So long story short, the guy who was going to help me didn't help me. Uh, so I was like, well, I can either give up now or go ahead and make the book and just, you know, how sometimes the best thing to do things is just to kind of throw yourself into it, sink or swim,
And
kind
see
of
how and see if you yeah, oh yeah,
see what happens.
that's how it is with this channel. Yeah, no, I totally understand.
So I decided to just open up more credit cards, put more money into another to actually printing a book. And then, once you have a book, what do you have to do? You have to kind of sell it. And where do you find people to buy this, excuse me, book? Conventions, Artist Alley. So then that started me for the next 3 years traveling around the country. Like, dude, I don't even know how I managed to do all this stuff because I was working as a photographer, working as an assistant, doing social media for a part time for a photo lab, and running around the country like selling books. Like, it was actually a really crazy time. I'm even surprised I actually did it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I remember seeing your first book. It was the one. It was I think it was your first or second book. I can't remember, but I remember it had the cover of that cloud cosplayer on the front of it.
Yeah, first book.
That was your first book, and I was just like, because I don't think before that I've never heard of any cosplay magazines, like probably like in the newspapers and everything, but like a legit like I said, there's like National Geographic, there's the modeling ones, but like there was never one specifically for cosplay.
There was two books about cosplay before my book came out.
Oh, I've never heard of them. Yours is like the first
I
one I ever heard of.
uh, I I think I was the first one to actually. Okay, so the first oh man, okay, the first one is called Wonder Women of America, and it was done by a European couple who were vendors at San Diego Comic Con, and the wife went around and took pictures of cosplayers. And there's actually a picture of Yaya Han in the book. I it's actually a great documentation of like what cosplay was in like 2007 ish, that
Oh yeah.
time period. But
Oh yeah.
anyways,
But yours like so the first so the your first book came out what, 2010 was it?
yep,
Oh jeez. Um
yeah, it's 13 years ago now, or 14.
yeah, 13 years. It's been 13 years since the first. What made you want to make it into what made you want to make the magazines for cosplay?
Oh, the book.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, actually, it's it's a book. It's like,
Oh, I guess it's like a legit hardcover book.
oh yeah, it's like I okay. I like book. I like art books. I like photography books. I've been into books for a long time, and so I really want to make my own. So I mean, this thing's like 272 pages.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So I did realize one kind of situation I didn't think about. The bigger and heavier the book is, the more expensive it is to ship.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, I got to ask more money for shipping. This is not a simple like $2.50 thing. This is more like $8 or something.
It's like a book
So
you would get at Barnes and Noble.
actually, my book was actually I don't know how my book got into Barnes and Noble, but it got into one because somebody messaged me about it. I'm like, I didn't put it there. So it would okay. Okay, so when you're doing stuff by yourself, you're kind of like learning pretty fast, like who you got to find distributors who can take care of your book. Um, Obviously, because you're not a big company or a name or anything like that, you're kind of forced to like go with smaller players in a way. So I had about three different companies like get my book out there, but honestly, it's because I kept showing up at conventions and oh, social media. Social media was like the strong thing that really, because you remember 2010, 2012, social media was reaching that
Oh yeah,
point where it was like,
MySpace was dying and Facebook was becoming more of a bigger more of a the bigger player at the time. Yeah.
yeah. So it was. I can probably say if it wasn't for Facebook, I probably wouldn't be as, I guess, well known as I am. And yeah, so 13 years. Wow.
That's crazy. How many books have you released since then?
Just two books. I'm working on my third book.
Nice. And that one's coming out what, next year, I think it is? I think I saw a
I'm
post.
hoping for 2024, 2025. I'm hoping to shop it to publishers and try the more traditional route. But if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to go back to the old school way, which is, you know, run a Kickstarter, uh, make your own books, then travel around the country and sell it. You know, like bands, when bands travel from town to town, they sell merch, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, like old school. So we'll see what happens. I don't know.
But I mean, even over the years, you've like gained quite the following too, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I think I'm I'm not even sure why they've I think I'm a goofy guy, so I don't know why people want to follow me specifically. But for the stories, I I think they just like the stories because everything I post on social media nowadays, I try to have a story. I try to get the cosplayer to tell me something about their experience, what they enjoy about cosplay. Like I want to find out. Okay, so when you go to Google and type in cosplay, you see lots of cosplayers. But after a while, I get more curious. Like, why did they pick that costume? Like, how do they do the mashup? Or if they tailor it to their own styling, why did they do that? And just more questions about that. So I started reaching out, like messaging them and asking them like questions, and then I would repost their picture with what they said. And I think I've been doing that since 2015. I mean, I've always reposted stuff since the beginning, but I didn't get into the story heavy part until I think 2015.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, it's kind of weird. The whole idea about Cosplay In America started as a photo project, and now it's turned into more of a story project in a way.
I honestly think that's cool though. It's nice. It's kind of like what I do on here when I do the get to know that cosplayer interviews, like have them share their story, but like seeing it like in your books, it's really cool.
No, but I see something about what you do too, because you do, like I said before, long form. Like you have a half an hour to hour talking. Having a book is only like a page, 2 pages, and even on social media, it's kind of limited. So I kind of like your format better in a way.
Well, I mean, you're like I gotta say I like your format a lot. Like I said, you're one of the like I said back in the day when I first heard people talking about conventions and cosplay, I'm like, what is this? So, I had to go on the internet and then I had a Facebook around that time and when I was typing in cosplay, your thing came up out of the blue and like I didn't know this was like a whole thing. I thought this is just something you do just for the hell of it. I didn't know like people actually do this not only for fun but for competition and everything. So like I gotta say you're kind of an inspiration to get me into this kind of stuff, man.
Uh, Thanks, but I think it's the convention that really. I think once somebody goes to a convention, they understand like everything. Like it solidifies in their head. Like when they talk to cosplayers, when they talk to other vendors and other fans, it's it's us, it's me, it's the people at a convention that really kind of like open our eyes in a way. So I don't think I would. Okay, so I started going to conventions in like '08. Though I did go to a convention when I was a kid, but I was a kid. I sometimes wish I was younger when I got into it because I would have been so much far ahead because like I learned about myself. I learned a lot about like how to navigate the world through conventions. So Uh, yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, I have to say like I feel like the cosplay convention scene kind of started off seriously get taken off in 2008 when you had people like Kamoya Cosplay, Yaya Han, Jessica Negri, and all them, you know, really make it a staple here in the States.
I I think it takes, I think it's a generational thing. Like every generation has their costuming cosplay, because before that there were, I mean people have been costuming in conventions since 1939,
Oh
the
yeah.
first convention. But I feel like this is a generation that grew up like online. That's how they found the information. So we went with it. The previous generation, it was zines, and there was just paper. It was it was a different time. It was the same thing, but it's kind of different nowadays. So I'm always curious, like, what's the next leap? Like, we're
Oh yeah.
digital. What is it? Ultra digital next, or I mean,
That
are
that's
the
that's the question. What's it gonna be like? And I'm sure, you know, you'll be hearing more stories about, more modern day cosplay stuff.
I think I think let me try that again. We definitely will. The one thing that I'm personally like invested in is trying to maintain or preserve people's stories, because what happens is, like, okay, so we don't really know the stories from the previous generation. We can find it online. We can find some old GeoCities, posts about like Anime Expo 1997 or something like that. But one thing I'm trying to do is to like make a preservation site where I can put people's stories so people can find them later on in the future. Like my personal dream is like a library of cosplay. Though
Ooh.
I have no idea how to actually pull that off.
That'd be
You know,
that'd be pretty cool to see though. I mean, I like seeing your posts, and again, I also like see your posts where you're like sharing people's experiences from like Anime Expo and these conventions back in like the 90s when like it was just more getting kicked off here.
it's I I like I can't even talk today. I'm always curious about how people did things in different time periods. So it's like I mean, I'm sure it's pretty much the same. Like, conventions are conventions through and through. But I'm always curious about like how conventions were run 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, things like that.
I completely get it. Like, I mean, and as I said, I've had so many people on here who've been attending conventions since like 89, 90, and it's like, you hear all their stories and I hear all these people's stories, and it's just like it's crazy to see how far the cosplay community has come.
It does, and that just triggered a thought in my head. You are an archive in a way. As long as YouTube stays around for the next
Huh.
100 years or whatever, people can reference your videos and they
Oh,
can watch.
and I got real quick. I also got to thank you for because it's like it showed up out of the blue on my Twitter because I'm really on Twitter, but it said Cosplay in America because I follow you on Twitter and I saw like I saw actually I don't think I had followed you at the time, but when I saw that you shared a post of mine, like
Yeah,
when I was doing the plus size and cosplay, like no way that can't be who I think it is. So I had to like, oh my God, that is actually Cosplay in America talking about a podcast panel I did a while back. Like, oh my God.
yeah. Well, you cover topics that I feel like should be covered, and
I
so
try to. I try to cover those topics that people really, don't cover or they're afraid to cover or you just don't really hear. You probably hear it once or twice and that's it.
mhm. Yeah, I still can't remember how I found your. It was just probably, how it is with Google. You just kind of start Googling and then following different links, and then the next thing you know, you find something. Um, I do a lot of that, kind of just searching around for stuff.
Well, still, it's pretty cool, man. Like, so what made you come up with the name Cosplay in America?
Oh, sometimes I wish I came up with a different name, because, okay, because it does sound kind of like weird to say cosplay in America as a name. Like I'm supposed to be the standard or something like that, but it just, for a book it makes perfect sense. Cosplay in America, It's a book about cosplay in America. When you put it online, like on social media, then it gets kind of like funky in a way. So I kind of wish I had my name and then put Cosplay America as like secondary title or something. But I'm stuck with it now, so can't do anything about it.
I mean, for the past 15 or so years, um, it seems to have stuck with a lot of people.
Um, I like to think so. I'm not really sure, you know, but I'm happy that I actually had the chance to actually still do this. Like, it's gone. It's yeah, it has definitely given me something to grasp onto during, not so great times.
Oh,
Because it's
I feel that.
yeah, like I'm sure for you, you have like a schedule where it drops every. There's a schedule set up.
Oh
So
yeah,
I have a schedule set.
I try to keep a schedule for my for especially when I do the cosplay content.
Yeah. So, this forced me to like just be active, So if I get too depressed or whatever, I can't be too depressed because, oh, I had to put something out, you know?
Oh no, I get it. So you also did cosplay photography. What was it like doing cosplay photography?
It's interesting. Cosplay photography is really interesting because there's basically hall cosplay shots and then more of what I call like location shooting in a way. And so there's not much um space to. I guess what I'm looking for is I'm looking for like photography that will challenge me, So, and maybe one of the things is I've been doing this for so long that I see the same thing over and over and over that I get kind of numb to it. But I'm always looking for something that would resonate with me, that tells me a story, you know. So, and it doesn't matter if it's kind of documentary style or if it's, like photo illustrationist. I don't know what. They're the people who start with the picture and then they build on top of that with Photoshop and other software. And then they create this amazing work that is not photography, but not illustration, but it's like photo illustration or something like that, you know? So I did that for a while and then I got kind of burnt out. So I stopped doing it for a while. And then recently I've been starting to get back out there and taking my setup and then just shooting just to get back into it again.
Nice. Do you remember what was it like going doing photography for your very first convention?
Dude, I had so much fun. It's like, oh look, it's Cobra Commander. Oh look, it's like I would I I love the fact that people dress up and I would want to play do different things with them. Like if I had two characters, I would have them play rock, scissors, paper or something. Like I wanted to get like something that just seems kind of like I know a lot of times people try to kind of do like in character poses in character and things like that, but I I like to find the scratch underneath and find the person underneath that, like are they into I mean I don't know, but I cannot speak today. I just like to try to bring out like who they are as a person. So I'm photographing a person who just happens to be dressed up as somebody else. I hope that makes sense.
That no, that does. I mean that's I think that's what cosplays are all about, someone dressing up as their favorite character, you know, no matter who it is. And I think that's honestly cool that, you started out doing just photography. Do you still do the cosplay photography or do you just focus on the other stuff now?
It's mostly the other stuff, but I've been trying to get back into it. So the pandemic kind of really just took out everything,
Oh yeah,
you know.
I'm fully a lot
So
of I'm fully aware of how the pandemic just kind of just put conventions on a hold for a while.
when it's I'm trying to get back into it, but I'm finding myself now okay, like super huge conventions. I'm not so like excited about now. Like New York Comic Con, I would like to go to it, but I don't know if I want to be in the crowd, in the beginning.
Oh,
I'll be on the outside where it's less people, but this never happened before. And part of it, I kind of blame on, I guess, the pandemic. It just kind of changed how I,
it definitely changed the con scene, especially for the bigger cons.
it did. I remember I was at Anime NYC in 2021, and so that's the Java Center in New York City. And during the pandemic, that was a field hospital, and I was like, man. But I mean, yeah. And so it took me a little bit longer to get back into the fan convention like mentality, but it was kind of, especially if you're in New York, it was kind of tough. You're in California, right?
I'm in Oregon.
You're in Oregon. Okay, so um, I'm not sure if they took your convention centers and used them as.
I'm not sure, but I know New York was like the epicenter for like a lot of things. A lot of places were shut down, a lot of places were converted, you know, like the main convention buildings were converted into small hospitals and everything. Like I saw that on the news and it was like it sucks because conventions can be a town or city's moneymaker depending on the type of con.
Mhm, exactly. So it was, and I'm I don't think I can get back to the way I do things after the last few years. But I'm also okay with it because we all have to kind of change and adjust. We all grow, we all learn. Nothing actually really stays the same, though some things kind of feel like it's still the same. So I'm kind of looking forward to see what's going to happen next because I've been doing the same thing for so long that I'm kind of like thinking, what's the next plateau? What's the next cliff I have to climb? Like, what's the next thing, that's out there for me to do, you know?
Oh no, I again I wholeheartedly understand and I get that. Imagine, one like have you gone to any recent cons though? As
Yeah,
of late?
I've been to, like, I'm okay with smaller conventions, which is kind of weird because to tell you the truth, I don't think the COVID cares like if it's a big convention or a small convention, or not COVID, but it can be anything actually,
Oh
But
yeah.
for some reason, big ones like I'm not so great about, but small ones like I went to New Orleans for a fan expo, and so that was decent size, and I actually saw people. Actually, I saw, I saw an artist alley couple that I met 12 years ago at a convention in Texas, and they were still out there, like selling their wares. And I'm like, I was so happy to see them because I knew that they started off like doing artist alley as part time, and now it's their full time job, and they bought a house and everything. And I'm like, congratulations, wow, like you really put your mind to it and stick with it. And it might take 10, 12 years, but you can get somewhere,
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
no, definitely. Well, I'm glad that you're still going back to conventions. I mean, I can understand not going to wanting to go to big conventions because it's just so big and so crowded and everything. But I feel
Yeah,
like going to small conventions doesn't hurt. One, you know, it's nice to see what all the other all these other conventions are like. Two, you're also supporting local small conventions to potentially have another con next year.
exactly. And there's something to be said about smaller conventions because I feel that when you get to the bigger conventions, it's very like, I got a panel this time, I got to run, so when you talk to people, it's kind of not so, you don't have as much time. But you go to a small local convention, you can talk to somebody for 20 minutes and it's no problem. Like, you don't feel like they're taking up your time or anything. And honestly, I kind of prefer just taking pictures at smaller conventions because that's where you see like the community, like just people from that town. Usually there are people who just heard about cosplay or conventions and they just want to try it out. So you get a lot of newcomers, which I love to see because I love to see new people. When you get to the bigger ones, they're a little bit more experienced. They've been to conventions enough times, though there are new people, and obviously the cosplay gets a lot. I would say that the cosplay level gets a little bit higher with those, but I found some great cosplayers at smaller conventions, like just by searching on Instagram, and I've interviewed them before. So, you know, maybe it's because I spent so much time at big conventions for 10 years that I want to actually go to Kansas to go. There's a convention I want to go to, Anime Iowa, which has been around for almost since like 97. It's kind of interesting because it's in a place where you have to fly and then drive to it in a way. And so it's not in like a major city. But I always want to go there because I feel like if I went there, I would be at a place where the convention stood stood still. Like time didn't move too much. That you could see how things were. So one of these days I'm gonna go to Iowa just to go do that.
Nice. Let's see what else. What else has it been like doing the Cosplay in America books? What's that been like? I can imagine that's not always easy trying to get it ready for release.
It's I'd like to say that if I knew what it took to actually do this thing, I probably wouldn't have done it. But the best thing that this thing has given me is it gave me the opportunity to go around the country and talk to people. And I really treasure that because I mean we don't get we get few opportunities to just travel the country and just see different people in different places. Though I admit, all I ever see is the convention center and the conventions. I don't usually see too much of the city, but to me, conventions are kind of like life in a way to me. So as long as I'm at a convention, I'm pretty much okay.
Hey, and I think that's all that should matters as long as you're enjoying the convention and it's something you enjoy doing. I can't really argue with that. Like I think that's honestly a cool thing.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How long have you been doing the podcast?
So the podcast, well, the Cosplay Con Talk one, I've been doing since 2020, 2021, and what originally it was going to start off as just a one and done podcast talking about just the cosplay community in general, like how it's changed over the years, like how people get gatekeeped about cosplaying, how the new standards are, and I had people interested. And it's like once I posted on a local convention group that I'm part of here in Oregon, and when I saw people just commenting, it's like, oh, okay, well, I wasn't expecting. So I had a friend suggest that I do interviews. And I gotta thank him for suggesting that because if I hadn't, I'm not sure. I think this just would have been a one and done. And yeah, and originally I also wanted to go to conventions and showcase them. Go around the con, interview the cosplayers, interview the guests, show off the artist alleys, the exhibitors, like what the con has to offer. Couldn't do that because COVID. So last year, I had another cosplay friend of mine, Cosplay Me, shout out to her. She suggested that I sign up for media coverage for a local convention here in Oregon. It's like, all right, I'll give it a try. So, I got a cheap mic. I used my phone, and I just basically went around the entire convention, showing off the artist alley, interviewing cosplayers, interviewing the guests, the artist and everything. And yeah, I call
What's
that I call that convention showcase, which is pretty fun.
was it Rose City?
No, it was the I wish. No, the con was called, and it's a favorite local con of mine. It's called. We have two cons here locally, and where I'm from, Oregon. One's called Anna Medford, and another one is called Meadowlark Comic Con. They're small conventions, and Anna Medford just got approved for a bigger location. It's actually 15 minutes away from 15 minutes driving from where I live.
Nice.
But yeah. It's been, I'm not gonna lie, it's been fun doing this cosplay con talk series. I've met a lot of people, not just here in the States, but um getting the chance to talk to other people around the world too. It's been fun. Which I never, if you had told high school me that I'd be doing something like this, I would have said you're full of crap.
Yeah. Say with me. Say with me. have you thought about interviewing people who run the conventions or who are?
I have actually have done that too before.
Hmm.
It's a topic I call convention discussion, where I will, if I can, I will talk to the people who are running these conventions to not only talk about their convention, but what people will be expecting for that year. And I've talked to quite a few here from here in Oregon and down in California.
I think that it's kind of like their stories. Like I want to hear their stories. I want to hear what you know what they went through. I'm just curious about people in general, and I'm curious about conventions. Like organizers. Like I would love to ask organizers like, tell me like what challenges you faced in your first convention. And stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
So
I've been talking to people who've done it for like a year or two, and then I've talked to people who've who just recently started, like they want to get a convention in their area, which I think is cool that, that these people who've gone to conventions want to run their own conventions. And it's not easy from what I've heard and seen, but if they can make it work to where people want to go back again, and no, definitely.
I like to run a convention one day or event.
I think that'd be pretty cool, honestly.
I'm hoping to try to do some kind of educational theme about cosplay. It's more like
Like a like a
cosplay school.
like a panel in a sense.
In a sense, it'd be like everything relate to. It's like almost 101, but deeper than 101. So it's like 201. It's just more in depth about because I feel that the problem with conventions, at least with cosplay panels, is they give you just 40, 50 minutes and you can't really discuss everything in 50 minutes. And then there might be some workshop type stuff that might work better, but they would need like a dedicated event where it's just purely about the education.
That'd be
And
pretty cool, honestly.
I there's a few out there like Costume Con. The Costume Con's been going on since 1983, and it's just costume based. You know, uh, there's Costume College in Woodland Hills. Actually, Cosplay America. There's actually a convention called Cosplay America in Perry.
I have heard of that.
Yeah, they're they're like I believe they're kind of modeled after the other ones. Actually, I need to go there because I think it'd be hilarious for me to show up so I could just say Cosplay in America at Cosplay America. So I'm going to do that one of these days, but it's in Cary, North Carolina, so it's not exactly like a
Hop, skip, and a
um
jump.
yeah. So, but I will check it out one day because I love what they do. I just feel that there needs to be more, I guess, events geared toward cosplay. I mean, conventions are cosplay heavy, but they're just more for socializing than they are for education purposes. You know, same
Oh,
thing with cosplay photographers. Like, there's classes, there's events. Again, more deeper than just your typical panel you get at your local convention. But I have no idea how to do any of this stuff.
oh yeah, no,
So
no. I thought about doing a convention as well, but it's like, one, you gotta know people. Two, it can cost quite a bit of money, even if it's crowdfunded. Um, have you traveled outside the US for conventions before
I
to help promote Cosplay in America?
and not to promote them, but just to go like Canada. I've been to like two or three conventions in Canada, Mexico, Japan, and London. And that's about it.
Oh wow. And I think I saw like a post of yours that it was for the World Cosplay Summit as well that you attended once.
I actually did not attend. I went to the USA finals.
Yeah, that one.
I was in at Katsugon, but I did not go to the WCS in Nagoya, which I wish I could, but
Oh,
that's a chunk of change right there.
oh
So
yeah. Oh, trust me, I know, I'm fully aware of that.
yeah. So okay, so I'm curious. So for Oregon, is it pretty diverse when it comes to conventions? Like, do you have horror conventions, furry conventions,
Uh,
steampunk conventions?
I'm not fully familiar with the Oregon convention scene. I'm usually familiar with, so we have like some here in the Pacific Northwest, we have as far as I'm familiar with, we have gaming conventions, we have KomoriCon, which is a pretty decent sized anime convention. We have Rose City, which is
Mhm.
also in Portland as well. And then And we also got Fan Expo Portland, and then up in Washington, there's SakuraCon, there's Emerald City Comic
Emerald
Con.
City.
Yeah, I'm not all too familiar. I have this plan. What I would love to do is it's a mini docu-series or a docu-film discussing all the conventions in Oregon, or as I call it, the Oregon convention scene. Basically, talk about all like from the big conventions to the small ones, and just have like a one big documentary or a two-part documentary and post it on YouTube so people can like get an idea of what to expect if they want to check out the con scene here in Oregon.
That sounds like a great idea.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a project that's gonna take quite a bit and try to find the people who want to help with it, but I think it'd be pretty fun. Have you cosplayed yourself before at all ever?
I have I have 3 to 4. I've only done 3 or 4 times. I'm sorry, 3 or 4 costumes, and I've only cosplayed outside of California. I used to live in California. I only cosplayed one time outside in Michigan at UMaCon, and that was it. Um, I usually try to find something simple because I'm usually an artist alley and I'm behind a table.
I
Uh,
trust me, I get that all too well.
yeah, so one idea I never did it was there's an old Saturday Night Live skit with Rihanna and Shy Ronnie. So you can just Google that at some point. It's just a character that I just loved, and I was going to. The good thing about the characters is it's basically closet cosplay, which means you can just go to a thrift store and buy
Oh,
different parts.
I love classic cosplay.
Yeah, it's just so casual, I guess, casual in a way. I wanted to do it with a friend of mine, but we never got around to it. Then she got busy with work and everything. So maybe I should bring that back for, maybe I should see if she wants to do that. But um, the other ones I've done was Marty McFly, which actually is an interesting story. Was somebody came up to me and talked to me in character, and I had forgotten I dressed as Marty because it's very like closet cosplay. So at first I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, and then he just like, Marty, Marty. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm dressed as Marty, you know? So that one happened like that. The other character I did was Sado from Devil's a Part-Timer, which is this anime, which I never thought I would get into because the fact that the devil works at a fast food restaurant just seems kind of like a weird idea to me. But then I watched it and I loved it. And now there's a sequel coming out almost 8 years after the series first came out, which I have no idea why it took so long to actually have a sequel. But that one's fun. And then what was the other one I did? Geek Boy from Panty and Stocking. You could tell like these animes are all from like the
Early to
20
late 90s, early 2000s, classic, as I call them, classic animes.
classic. So I've done a few.
Nice. It seems like you've enjoyed it though, doing it.
If I didn't enjoy what I was doing, I would never have done this for so long. You know, like I've sunk money, time, energy, so much of everything into it. Um, I mean, yes, the books there make money, but the money pays off the bills that I had to pay to actually make the book in the first place. So, in other words, I have a really expensive hobby. So,
Oh, it is not cheap.
for con goers, the ones who go to conventions a lot all over the country, they know what I mean because they have to fly there, get a hotel, go to the convention, buy stuff. You know, I don't
It's
think I could ever leave this convention life.
it's not easy, I'm sure. Like as I've talked to as I've said multiple times on my channel, I don't know how I mean, there are those cosplayers who have this as a career. That's why they're able to, go to these cons, be a guest judge, help run the con. Like it's like it's in this. I imagine what you do is a full-time career is a full-time thing too for Cosplay in America.
No, this is actually like a part-time thing.
Really?
It just feels like a full-time thing because I think about it all the time, but I don't really make much from it. I mean, well, once I get the new book out, there'll be something. But other than that, I just spend I just spend time trying to find people who have interesting stories. So the one thing I'm trying to do with my website is I've started to hire writers because I realize that I just can't really write. I'm not a writer per se. So I just get people to well, what I'm starting to do is I interview the cosplayer like on an audio thing, hand it over to a writer, and then let the writer create from that. So I'm trying that out and see how it works out because it takes a lot of time, and I can't do this. Continue. It's a one man show basically. I know some people think that there's like a whole team of people. Actually, nowadays there is a writer
I
and
was
somebody
just
else helping.
about to you and I was just about to ask, do you have a team helping you with this stuff?
I do now, but before it was all by myself.
Oh, geez,
So,
I can't imagine what that was like.
and you know what? You do it long enough, you don't think about it anymore. You know, it
Oh,
just becomes
that's fair. But still, I'm sure it's been fun I'm sure it's been a lot easier having a team help behind you because I can't imagine what it's like, I mean, I can imagine what it's like doing it all by yourself because I not only do I do like the recording, I do the editing, and then it's like I have to write down a list like when I do the cosplay get to know that cosplayers, I have to write down all the cosplays that were discussed, and I have to have this in the photos, and I have to put them in the video at the time that the cosplay was mentioned, showing a picture of their cosplay and then a character and then a picture of said character that they're cosplaying, and then it could take a while. It could take a bit. I'm not gonna lie.
I feel like people in the convention scene juggle a lot of stuff, like they have to be what is it?
Multitask.
Yeah, multitask. No matter if you're a cosplayer, artist, hobby, whatever, um, it just takes up time. But I, again, if I didn't enjoy what I was doing, I would have given this up way long time ago.
Well, I imagine, it could take a lot out of you, I'm sure. Again, I can't imagine like the stuff you've had to do over the past, few years just get this to where it is now.
Uh, I wish I was better at it. But I think this is kind of common to every creative person. They always wish they could do something better, or they're not totally satisfied with what they do. So I kind of like keep thinking like I could have done this better. Why didn't I do this better? You know? So it just kind of comes with the territory.
Oh,
But
I believe it.
you know,
Oh, I wholeheartedly and that's I feel like you're, as always say when it comes to like cosplay, you're always learning something new. Even like your cosplayers who've been doing this for so long,
exactly,
they're always learning something new to make their cosplays better or make it easier on them.
exactly. More comfortable, you know, hiding pockets to put stuff, making sure that you can easily go to the bathroom and not, you know, like it's kind of funny. I would ask cosplayers like, do you con crunch anymore? Because people tend to con crunch a lot in the beginning, and a lot of them will still say, I still con crunch. And I said, but you guys know better. And they say usually like they need that extra like,
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I'm familiar. I've had that conversation quite a lot with some
yeah,
cosplayers who build their own cosplays, and yeah, it's just like they hear that word. I mentioned that word, and they just like they have that cringe look face, and they just shudder because like they know, they know, but like it's still a thing.
it's still a thing. It really is. So, you know, I'm more curious to do more. Like, I want to talk to people who've been doing this longer because I feel that, cosplay usually comes in when you're younger, like teenage, college, whatever. You have more time. But then as you kind of go into your 20s, your time gets taken away by either job, family, or you bought a house or something like that. And then I'm always curious about how people manage to balance their life with cosplay, and then by the time they reach into 30s or 40s. I I need to kind of like find more people to go talk to
Oh,
about this.
I've talked to I've had cosplayers, two cosplayers who were in their 60s who were only been like doing it for like 2, 3 years. So it's interesting to hear people who are older who had just recently got into cosplay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go find look through your old episodes and find them and go listen to
Oh,
that episode.
oh yeah, no, yeah, it's interesting to see that. I guess the last question is, well, actually, before I ask the last question, um, what's been some of your favorite experiences, your favorite moments of doing cosplay in America?
Okay, it took me to England. Um, First of all, I don't know why I went to England. I think it was because I found it cheap airfare. But so I didn't really have like a burning desire to go outside the US. But when I got there, the one thing that I noticed that I wish that would happen in the United States is that I met cosplayers from all over Europe. Like Europe is a small place. Like you fly an hour outside of London, you're in I think Paris or something. Like, but here in America, like you fly an hour outside of Oregon, Portland, you're in what, San Jose? You're still in the United States. It's still the same old, same old. But when I was there, I was like, wait, you're from Italy and you're here? Wait, you're from Spain, you're here? I was like, whoa, it's like mind blown. Cosplayers from different countries, all in the same place. And I'm like, can we do this in America? Not really.
I mean, like, but you'll like have I've had people who like who live. I've talked to people who live here and they'll travel to like California or they'll travel all the way to Florida for holiday Matsuri, and it's crazy. Like, how do you have the money for that? I could barely. I could like. I'm lucky if I can afford to go to like a con near like that's like an hour away. Let alone, afford to go to a con that's like hours away.
Discount though. Okay, so how I got to England was there used to be Wow Air from Iceland. They went out of business. I think it was $350 or something. There is drawbacks to it. Number one, they don't fly directly to London. They fly to one of the cities near London. You still have to travel from that city into London. Second of all, you have to stop in Iceland because that's their pit stop. And then like the low cost airlines in the United States, they're going to dime you for everything. So I took a backpack and a bottle of water, and that was it. Oh, yeah, and also like snacks because that's what I always might have during the flight. Um, Otherwise, you have to pay like I don't know, $20 to $50 for luggage. It all adds up, but you can find pretty cheap airfare. You just have to make sacrifices.
No, no, I wholeheartedly agree on that.
The one place that I also like meet a lot of international people is actually New York Comic Con. So for some reason, people like to go to New York, I guess to see a city and then go to a convention. So at New York Comic Con, I've met plenty of British folks, uh, German cosplayer. Wait, two German cosplayers. Um, that's all I can think of right off the top of my head. But I usually find people from different places. Yeah. So let's see. It was interesting in London because it operates the same way as in America. Actually, London Comic Con is now owned by Reed Pop, which
Yeah,
is New York Comic.
I've heard of Reed Pop. They're known for owning a lot of conventions and getting a lot of high-end guests.
Yeah, and ECC. That's I think their property too.
Oh
But
yeah.
the what was I going to say? So yeah, so and interesting enough, Japan was the place where it kind of diverged off what I'm used to because like most conventions I go to are what I call Western in nature. Like they're usually put around a convention center. There's hotels, people cosplay. There's panels, everything. It's like any comic book convention. But when you go to Japan, like their events are a little bit different. Like I went to Anime Japan in 2017, Anime Japan is kind of like E3, where there's a part of it that's for business, and then our part of it's for the public. So half the convention wasn't open to public until the weekend, and so when you go into the vendor hall, instead of like a person selling, you know, how do I call it? Third party sellers, like people who sell different stuffed animals or any
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
I've seen my fair share of that at a con back in California back in 2019.
yeah. But they didn't have that in Anime Japan. They had like license, what do you call it? Like the company itself that makes the
Oh, licensed merchandise, like
no,
something.
no, it's like if a company makes the anime, that company's there.
Oh, so
Industry.
like Toei or
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So it was weird because it's like we don't really AX is kind of like that, but not really. I mean, they have industry people, but it's also a lot of like regular vendors. But they didn't really have that in the when I went to in Japan. And then how they do cosplay is different because you have to pay money to do the cosplay. It's for changing rooms because you have to change there at a location. There's a cosplay area where you can only cosplay at. When they say cosplay at, I did see cosplayers out on the floor, but nobody was chasing them for pictures. So I think the Japanese have this area where they basically this is a cosplay area and this is where you go and take pictures.
It sounds like it sounds like cosplaying in Japan. They have a lot more stricter rules and guidelines in Japan when it comes to cosplaying conventions.
I I'm still learning about that. I only went to one convention. I like to go back and I'm I like to interview cosplayers from Japan, or at least American or Western ones, because I don't really speak Japanese, so I can only communicate with English speakers. So I like to find out more because it just seems fascinating that they're the way they do things isn't like in America it's like let's go have a party, let's go see our friends at a convention. There, from what I understand, going to a event is more about taking pictures and photography than it is about hanging out, which I'm not totally sure. Like I need to dig deeper and find out more about this because I'm not totally like 100% sure about all this. It just seems like it. I just I need more time.
Oh no,
I,
I get that. I myself would love to do more interviews with people around the world where it's like cosplaying. Um, you
who
know,
have you interviewed outside the United States for
I
cosplay?
have interviewed. Their podcast is not up yet, but they're called Courtney and Louis Cosplay. They're a cosplayer based in the UK.
Okay.
I've interviewed a cosplayer who's lived and has cosplayed in the Middle East. I've interviewed a cosplayer who lives in the US and has cosplayed in the Middle East. I have interviewed people who have been vendors and have done events at Supernova in Australia.
Yeah, Australia.
Yeah. And I've also interviewed yeah, no, I've interviewed quite a few people. Like I would love to interview more people. I would love to do a podcast panel, invite people on what it's like cosplaying internationally. Because I've interviewed a few cosplayers here in the States who have got the chance to cosplay in other parts of the world, but not like people from those countries. I would like to interview more people from the country, what it's like, what their cosplay is like.
Hmm. Yeah, I kind of want to do the same thing, but I'm always worried that I don't think they would understand my questions because I'm coming from Western style things. So when I say, like, how is it for them? I'm really asking, like, how does it compare to what we're used to here? Because that's what we're used to. I'm always worried that I always try to find people who've been to the US because I don't know if they've never been to the US, if they can accurately describe it. Like, okay, I'm curious about the Middle East one because you had two people you interviewed from
Oh
the Middle
yeah,
East.
the one cosplayer I interviewed, he's from the States, but he went to the Middle East for a convention to show off his big build cosplay, and then I had another cosplayer. I can once we're done, I can send you the links and everything.
I would love to hear it because MedCap is like one of those conventions I want to fly to, but flying to the Middle East is like I don't know if I can actually pull that one off, but I I definitely want to like talk to people from because it just seems kind of unusual in a way, like the Middle East and a comic book convention, you know. But again, I have heard of Pakistan having anime conventions, and I kind of want to explore that, but I'm not sure I want to actually go. Actually, I don't even know how much it would cost to even do that. But there's always these other places around the world that I'd like to go to one day, but we'll see. I just need to win the lottery. So any good lucky numbers, let me know.
Oh, definitely. I definitely will. Last but not least, before we end this, any advice you want to give to the pe those out there who want to like do what you do or like stuff like what we do? Any advice you would like to throw out there?
Do what we do. Just do it. Start off your local convention. You don't have to have the greatest gear because I feel like, at least with photography, people feel like they need to have the high end gear. You can just work it with your phone. Your phone works as a camera, as an audio recorder, and just go and basically just do it. Basically, I mean that's how you learn. So um, that's about it. Just use your phone.
I mean, I can't I can't argue
there,
with
there,
that.
There's a guy that I saw. He made a movie maybe 7 years ago. He shot on two iPhones. I was like, "What? You shot a movie? Like this was a Sundance movie, So I watched it, and then I was like, after a while, it kind of goes away that you're watching a phone movie, and you kind of get into the story and everything. And I feel like it's kind of down to the point where it's like the best thing to use is what you have available. So if you have a great camera, you can use that. But if you have like a phone, you can use that as well.
Oh no, that's very, 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 very true. I think that should do it again. Ejen, I really want to thank you for coming on again to talk about what you do, what it's been like, what it's like you've been doing, and I can't wait to see the next book come out either next year or the year after.
Yeah, me too. We'll see what happens. Knock on wood. Or
Very.
actually win the lottery. Man, if I won a lottery, so I think told people this before. Like I want to start a cosplay community center, like in major cities. Like if I just won so much money, I would just put it into like different because I feel like one of the things that kind of okay, conventions are great and all, but you have to pay to be there, right? So why isn't there like there are community centers for different communities? Why isn't there one for cosplay? Like a maker space. Actually, a maker space could work like that, but and I think it's up to us who live in the different parts of the country to create our own community. Like in the past, I would be like, how come somebody doesn't do it? Well, maybe I should do it. So I started this thing where I only did one of it so far. It's a cosplay swap meet. So if you have extra fabrics or extra cosplays you don't want, there's a space where I rent it out and you can come and get a table and just swap or sell your wares or something like that because there's just too much stuff going into the trash into like there's always stuff that people can use. So like why isn't there like a what is it called? Okay, there's a Facebook group that every city seems to have where you have free stuff and then you can just post it and people can just like
Yeah,
what is it called?
I follow a few of those cosplay sell where people can just sell their cosplays and everything. Like a cosplay, it's like an online cosplay swap meet kind of thing.
Yeah, the only problem with that is you have to mail it and it's through the mail and so forth. Like anyway, I'm working on a second one for Austin. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Again,
But
I can't wait to see it. But yeah. Real quick, would you like to let people know where they can find you on social media just in case they want to like stay up to date with what you do and see the posts you make on Instagram?
uh they can just go to cosplayamerica.com. All the social media links are there. So it makes it really easy. I should have a link tree. Really should.
Oh, I don't. I had to make one myself. But no, seriously, again, Ejen, thank you for coming on to share everything about cosplay in America. Can't wait to see more down the line and everything. And I think that should do it. And it should do it for this interview. Again, I'm Wayne the Unknown. Until next time, thank you for listening. And as always, thank you for watching.